It begins with a low hum of tension, the kind that settles into a story long before the details are spoken aloud. The narrator introduces the atmosphere of 2024 as a year where the industry's polished surface finally started to crack. Rumors that had floated for years suddenly felt heavier, more real, almost as if the walls of silence were collapsing under their own weight. The narration highlights that powerful figures are facing scrutiny from all sides, and that whispers, once brushed aside as jealousy or speculation, are now being repeated too often to ignore. It sets the tone by focusing on one voice, someone who claims to have walked away from unimaginable sums of money to keep their integrity untouched. This voice hints that behind the glamour lies a world full of secrets, strange invitations, and pressure to participate in things he wanted no part of. The introduction closes by pointing out that his warnings didn't just fall into the void, they ignited a trail that leads directly to the tangled story involving Nicki Minaj, leaked recordings, and accusations that no one ever expected to hear out loud. The narrator shifts into the heart of the unfolding chaos, beginning with the shocking claim that Nicki Minaj's life became endangered after she was allegedly tied to a leaked tape involving Meek Mill and Diddy. The narration makes it clear that the atmosphere around her changed instantly. What seemed like another messy industry rumor suddenly turned into something darker and more threatening. People online speculated, but they didn't understand the severity of what she hinted at, because according to the claims, what she faced wasn't just backlash or embarrassment, but an intentional attempt to silence her permanently. The narrator emphasizes how Nicki had always spoken about being targeted in different ways, but this time, the danger appeared far more calculated. Then the focus shifts to the alleged leaked tape that spiraled into viral confusion and disbelief. The story frames this moment as the start of a much larger chain reaction, one that pulled Nicki into the center of something she never intended to expose. And yet, the narrator hints that what came next would prove that the danger surrounding her was not imagined, but rooted in a larger web of secrets. Here, the narrator dives into the details of the now infamous audio recording said to involve Meek Mill. The narration follows the shockwave that spread when people heard what sounded like unmistakable pain, a sound so raw that viewers couldn't agree on whether it was real or manipulated. The narrator describes how the clip spread across social media within minutes, turning a private scandal into a massive public spectacle. Meek's reaction becomes part of the story as well, his rapid-fire tweets, filled with frustration and accusations toward the blogs he believed were trying to destroy his image. The narrator notes the contrast between Meek's public anger and the online audience's disbelief at the recording they heard. Instead of calming things down, his response fueled even more curiosity, making the mystery louder rather than silencing it. And as the narrator guides viewers through the mess, there's an uneasy sense that this was only a small window into something much bigger. This section closes with the observation that while the tape was dramatic on its own, what came afterward pushed the situation into an entirely different level of chaos. The narrator transitions into the legal avalanche triggered by Lil Rod's lawsuit. Without dramatizing the allegations, the story highlights how Lil Rod described two unnamed figures in ways so specific that the public instantly connected the dots. The narrator describes how the lawsuit painted a picture of private gatherings, power dynamics, and behavior that clashed sharply with the public personas of the artists involved. Even though no names were explicitly stated, the matching details left people stunned, fueling debates across social media and podcasts. The narrator explains that this lawsuit was the first time the public saw the puzzle pieces aligning into something cohesive. something that suggested the leaked audio wasn't an isolated event, but part of a wider pattern emerging around Diddy's inner circle. And yet, instead of offering closure, the lawsuit added new layers of uncertainty. It made people wonder how many stories had been buried and how many more might surface as the pressure on these figures continued to rise. The narrator leaves the audience with the sense that this wasn't merely legal drama, it was the spark exposing connections no one expected to be linked. This section zooms in on Nicki Minaj's role in all of this, narrated with a sense of unfolding inevitability. The narrator explains that long before the leaked tape, Nicki had hinted at having information about certain men in her past. Moments like her 2019 outburst, where she implied her ex was secretly involved in things he didn't want the world to know, take on a new meaning in hindsight. The narration digs into the live stream with Soulja Boy, where she suddenly pressed him about DL rappers, suggesting she already had someone specific in mind. These moments, once brushed off as dramatic or emotional, now seem like coded warnings. The narrator ties these older hints to the current allegations, creating a continuous thread that suggests Nicki had been holding on to information for years. As the tension builds, the narrator points out that this wasn't just a messy breakup or personal grudge. It was about power, hidden lifestyles, and secrets heavy enough to spark retaliation. And if Nicki truly had a hand in exposing the recording, it meant she was stepping onto dangerous ground knowingly. The narrator turns to the halted HBO Max documentary, a project that could have changed everything. This section describes how Nicki announced the series with excitement, promising to reveal untold moments from her rise, her relationships, and her battles within the industry. The narrator explains that fans expected drama, but no one predicted how quickly the project would be shut down. According to the claims, the documentary included details about her time working with Diddy and her volatile relationship with Meek Mill. The sudden cease and desist orders from both men created an unmistakable signal. Something in that footage scared them enough to take immediate legal action. The narrator emphasizes how unusual it is for two major artists to unite in silencing the same person, especially considering their own complicated relationship. It suggests the documentary contained something beyond personal embarrassment, something potentially damaging if revealed publicly. The section ends by framing this shutdown as a turning point, the moment where Nicki's story stopped being about celebrity drama and became about survival. The narrator turns to the halted HBO Max documentary, a project that could have changed everything. This section describes how Nicki announced the series with excitement, promising to reveal untold moments from her rise, her relationships, and her battles within the industry. The narrator explains that fans expected drama, but no one predicted how quickly the project would be shut down. According to the claims, the documentary included details about her time working with Diddy and her volatile relationship with Meek Mill. The sudden cease and desist orders from both men created an unmistakable signal. Something in that footage scared them enough to take immediate legal action. The narrator emphasizes how unusual it is for two major artists to unite in silencing the same person, especially considering their own complicated relationship. It suggests the documentary contained something beyond personal embarrassment, something potentially damaging if revealed publicly. The section ends by framing this shutdown as a turning point, the moment where Nicki's story stopped being about celebrity drama and became about survival. This section dives into the alleged attempted poisoning, narrated with a careful, suspenseful tone. The narrator recalls Nicki's posts about receiving food marked with strange messages clearly not meant for a normal customer. The narration emphasizes her confusion, how the restaurant workers seemed to know exactly who the order was for, despite no name being given. The feeling of being watched, targeted, or tracked seeped into her posts, and the narrator conveys how fans felt an immediate sense of concern. Nicki spoke about something being off, something deeper than simple fandom or coincidence. The narrator explains how she connected this incident to the broader pattern of intimidation she had been sensing for months. Whether the threat was real or part of a larger psychological pressure campaign, the moment became symbolic. It was the physical manifestation of everything she had feared, that she was no longer dealing with gossip or old relationship drama, but with forces intent on silencing her. The narrator leaves the audience with a lingering unease, as if the danger might still be lurking in the background. The narrator brings Katt Williams into the story, describing him as someone who had long warned the public about the industry's hidden side. This section explains how Katt's own experiences, filled with strange incidents, attempts on his safety, and conflicts with powerful figures, positioned him as someone who understood what Nicki was facing. Their connection becomes clear. Two artists who had both felt the weight of invisible pressure, now allegedly working together for survival. The narrator paints Katt as a quiet guardian figure, someone who recognized the signs of danger long before the public understood them. The narration ties his past warnings to Nicki's present struggles, making the collaboration between them feel almost inevitable. Their alleged partnership adds depth to the unfolding drama, implying that Nicki didn't simply hide or stay silent, she sought allies who understood the stakes. The section ends with the sense that Katt's involvement isn't just a detail, but a clue pointing toward the larger hidden network operating behind the scenes.